Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of the Right Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Darryl Jacobs. Join me every Friday at noon Eastern Time with decision makers from collegiate athletics and professional sports. But joining me today is the Vice President of Ticket Sales and Service for the Denver Broncos. Please welcome to the Right Fit, Mr. Marc Jackson.
I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you for taking the time out your busy schedule. I know you're getting ready for the start of football season, which is just about around the corner. You have a exhibition game. Preseason game, I should say, on the 13th, and you got the Cowboys at home. So any Cowboys fans watching or listening to this telecast, I know they're excited about seeing what they can do as well. Before we get started with the Q&A, talk about your journey into professional sports.
Certainly, right. And it started a while ago. When I got done being a student athlete at the University of Illinois, didn't exactly have much direction on what the next step was going to be. Had an opportunity. I had some good people in my corner, good people in my circle, and they got me to the Phoenix Suns organization. So the Suns, the Mercury, the Roadrunners at the time, ECHL hockey team. So I started off in inside sales, entry-level sales. It definitely wasn't glamorous or anything like that, but it was good work, right? And had the opportunity to learn from some.
In other words, you were account executive.
I was below an account executive.
Oh wow!
Right? Yeah.
But that's usually the starting point for people.
Yeah. Right. I was below
sports.
that. Right. And so, and that organization, it has some really talented executives and individuals. Rick Welch was the president. Drew Cloud was the VP. Mike Toman was the director. Jeff Iannello was the inside sales manager. Jeremy Walls was the group sales manager. So you can Google any of them names and you'll know that they are pretty big dogs right now in this industry. And some of the peers, the other sales reps, inside sales, the account executives, whether it's seasons or groups or premium, some really talented individuals there as well. So I was really fortunate enough to have a strong foundation of how to do this thing called ticket sales within this industry. Right. There's a lot of ways to do it. I still think that the foundation I had is, I'm biased because I believe it prepared me for pretty much everything. So I did that for 3 years, became a top producer, had the opportunity to transition to the Charlotte Bobcats before they were the Hornets. Right. Bob Johnson of BET, he owned the team. He had some really strong people in place. Fred Whitfield, he's still the president there. But I did that, and I was there for 8 years. And one of the most consistent things about, I would say, our industry is just change, right? And so we had a lot of change, not only just change from the brand perspective and the name of the arena, but also change with personnel, vision, direction, process, strategy, and I think that my background being a college coach's son, so, that sometimes you got to move around and, you get a short stay here or there. And then even in my time in college, I had 3 coordinators in 4 years. So different language, different playbooks, things of that nature. But that I became accustomed to change. Change was not averse to me. It didn't create anxiety or anything like that. You just lean into it, right? Have an open mind and work harder when that happens. And so apply some of those things. And we had success in Charlotte before the Hornets, when it was the Bobcats. After they changed to the Hornets, we had success there and a lot of great people that came through there. In fact, that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of is the people that we were able to recruit, train, develop, and ultimately some of them are still there doing great things. And some of them we were able to send elsewhere to new organizations, and they've had success. So extremely proud of my time there, and that opportunity or that success afforded me the opportunity to transition to Madison Square Garden. It's the world's most famous arena. right? When you think about arena life, it's the highest level. It's the world's most famous for a reason. And so that was obviously an opportunity that I was going to pursue and did take advantage of. Did that there for 4 years. Very thankful for my time there. Had some great experiences, worked with some really great people. And that opportunity created one for me here in Denver, where I was able to transition out here to lead the ticketing department for the Denver Broncos.
Well, you hit on some very good points. What a career traveling. You started as account executive, and you said be even below account executive. But this is great for the viewers and listeners to hear, because a lot of coaches watch this show, even administrators, and there's always that transition that they're going to be looking to go do something else. And sometimes you have to start at the entry level position. Talk about some of the things you do in your particular area, and why did you choose this area as a career?
No, that's a great question, Darryl. And I would say that I didn't really choose ticketing. I think folks
ticketing choose you.
Ticketing chose me, right? Like I mentioned, I started with I had some friends that were in Cleveland with the Cavaliers organization back in the day, and I had no idea what ticket sales was. I didn't know, I had focused most of my experience and knowledge on the playing side of sports, right? And like many of us, right, as fans growing up and players as growing up. And so folks that were in my corner, in my camp, they suggested and helped me realize that ticketing would be a good fit. Now, at the time, I didn't know, but it was. I packed up everything I had, put it in the U-Haul, drove from Chicago to Phoenix, stopped in the Motel 6 for a couple hours in Amarillo, Texas, and eventually made my way there. And I was fortunate.
Motel 6s are nicer now.
I mean, yeah. They're
nicer now compared to back
in 2000. Yeah. But not to say anything disparaging about Motel 6 or Super 8 or whatever it was just it was the first thing that I saw. I had my car.
Well, it was cost effective for you as well.
It was cost effective because I didn't have a lot, right? I didn't have a lot. And so I parked it, got a room, stayed overnight for 6 or 7 hours. Woke up the next morning, wiped the sleep out my eyes, brushed my teeth, and got back on the road, right? And made my way to Phoenix, Arizona. And it was a great experience. It's something I would never change because all of my experiences at every stop helped make me better at my next stop, right? And my dad like I mentioned, he was a football coach, college football coach for about 30, 40 years. He coached at Northern Illinois University, Oregon State, at Illinois, at Rutgers as well. And so he had to bounce around, right? And he always took it with the right attitude and increased work ethic, right? And learn the game and wherever you're at, because it's different, right? Terminology is different, success is different, right? The people are different, and so it's just figuring those factors out so that you can have success along with the rest of your peers.
During your journey, you was a candidate. Now you big time. Now you get to make all the decisions, get your team in place. As the vice president, right there with the Denver Broncos. Talk about your experience when you was a candidate during the interview process.
Yeah, and so I was an interview candidate even for this opportunity, right? And so you got to maintain that. You always going to be a candidate because you never know. Now, granted, I want to be here to for the next few decades until I retire, right? But you never know, right? And hopefully, I am here for an extended period of time. But like when you're interviewing, I think there's a couple of things of that you should always just focus on and being authentic to yourself, studying, knowing, doing your research, right? Those are some things that are important. And I think sometimes, and even when I do go through interview processes, and now I'm sitting on this side, you can tell who just showed up, right? Right. Who doesn't really, they don't understand the organization, the position, what they just want to work in sports. And right. And unfortunately, sometimes that's not enough because there's so few positions and so many candidates.
Mark, let's talk about the interview process when you're hiring. What does that look like? Shed some light on anything. If you have any recent hirings that you've done, or currently you might be in an interview process now, bringing somebody aboard. Talk about what does that look like under your umbrella.
Yeah, and what I'd always say is we should always be recruiting, right? I know that the ABC is always be closing, but ABR always be recruiting. My dad was a recruiting coordinator at Oregon State University for a short period of time, and so I used to, I'd watch him, right? He always recruiting, always watching tape, always watching film, and I think that's the key is you should always be recruiting as a hiring manager. It doesn't mean you actively recruiting, but you can always be having conversations with people who could be potential candidates, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is our process here in Denver. It's evolved recently through in large in part because of one of my colleagues who started recently, shortly after I did. I've been here almost 2 years. She's been here a little bit over a year, China Ju. She helped evolve our hiring process here in Denver, and it's something that I was a little bit more familiar with. So I'm gung ho. I'm champion number one because I'm like, yup, we should be doing this. Yup, I'm with you. Yup, let's get on board with that too, right? And I think that some of the things are just they may be different, but I think that they can help improve the process, right? Like consistent language, right? Consistent criteria, consistent process, right? Go through the same process every time, right? Right? Because if you have a consistent process, then hopefully it keeps you in line and it tries to eliminate some biases and things of that nature because you have the same process every single time. In terms of how you score, the language you use, all of those things. Also, I think that one thing that's important is that having a diverse search committee, right? And that's something that I think has really helped us as well. Whereas I don't necessarily have to have, and diversity can be in a lot of different forms, right? Diversity could be somebody that's outside of ticketing. Diversity could be based on gender. Diversity could be based on background or ethnicity or anything like that, or expertise, right? Because the more people that you can have included in because basically it's a puzzle, right? We're trying to figure out who this individual is, who this candidate is, and do they fit within our organization. That's like taking a single piece and trying to fit it into a puzzle, right? Similar to the background that I'm looking at here. And so having people that see things differently or have different experiences, it only helps improve the evaluation process. And then also being somebody who, if I'm hiring for ticketing and I have somebody within the ticketing department, they can also provide context for gaps or areas that people that are in the search community that may not have, right? I might have somebody in finance or IT or HR or sponsorships or something like that in a ticketing search committee to help me from a perspective. But then there might be some technical things that are discussed or highlighted that I can say, okay, well, this is what they mean by that, or this is what they were talking about.
Well, diversity of thought is key. But let's take a commercial break. You're listening and watching The Right Fit.
The Right Fit podcast is brought to you by Rising Coaches Search and Consulting. Tired of spending what seems like all of your time and budget filling coaching vacancies? Let Rising Coaches Search and Consulting handle your next coaching search. Our process is simple. We identify, vet, and recruit a talented and diverse group of professionals that fits your institution's profile. All for a low price that we guarantee will beat our competitions. Plus, all of your searches will be handled by former coaches, meaning we will get the best possible insight on all of your candidates, and you'll get the perspective that only a former coach could provide. For testimonials, a full client list, or more information, please visit risingcoaches.com.
Welcome back to the Right Fit podcast. I'm your host, Darryl Jacobs, ESPN Network. Joining me today is Marc Jackson, Vice President of Ticketing Sales and Service for the Denver Broncos, and we're talking all things Right Fit. Let's get to those do's and don'ts, buddy. Give me those two do's and don'ts when interviewing.
I'm gonna pick two out, and I think there's the duality for each, right? We can talk about each of them, but the first one I would say is just be authentic, right? And what I mean by that is there's times where you have to. Right. You want to be able to shift who you are a little bit, but like at the core, you got to be who you are. Right. Because if you're not, and then on day one, then that's not the person that they recruited. And you're not, the person that is presenting what you showed previously. And now all of a sudden you can have conflict and be yourself. Right. Whoever you are, be yourself. Right. And bring yourself to the table. And if that's a good fit for that opportunity, it's a good fit. And if it's not, keep it moving, right? Keep swinging, right? keep stepping back in that batter's box and keep swinging. So that's the first one. The second one I would just say is just about just be honest, right? And sometimes I can't believe some people don't think that you check references. Some people don't think that you do your recon on somebody, on a candidate. And trust me, most organizations, I'm not going to say all, but most organizations do, right? And so I'd say with whatever examples or names that you drop or the references that you put to help support your case, like just be authentic and be honest to who you are and what you've done and what you can do.
Well, the landscaping in sports is ever changing, and there's always trends and things that's happening, whether it's technology, new job opportunities, new positions, things are being created all the time. Are there any trends that one needs to be abreast of, particularly in your area of ticketing sales and service when it pertains to your particular area?
Yeah, I'd say that, ticketing has, and really just hospitality in general, it has evolved in the sense that I think that most programs, and I say programs, I mean like the ticketing departments or the hospitality departments within a particular club, and it doesn't matter what the league is, right? But I would say that we all have tried to get smarter, right? So that we can make more data-driven decisions. And I think that will continue to be a rising trend, right? So the more analysts, the more programmers that are resources for hospitality departments, so that they can better understand trends or gaps or even the customer, right? And so ultimately, everything that we do is about the customer and their experience and fan engagement, right? All of those things are tied to improving the overall experience, right? And so whatever we can do to learn more about the customer, the better, right? I'm running back and forth to our business intelligence crew. Tell me about this. Give me this report. Tell me about this, right? Because the more information and the more data that I have, the better decisions that I can make. And so it's a joint venture for all of us here in hospitality and ticketing and sales and service, right? And in the business analytics department, of trying to make sure that we have as much information so that we can actually make the most informed decisions.
Well, you kind of hit on a little bit going into my next question about job opportunities being on the horizon. Expand on a little bit. You mentioned business analytics, and you talked about a number of different things that might be potential job opportunities. Outside of those, are there any others that may be new in the industry that's being talked about now, that's being implemented? Because, as I mentioned, technology is changing,
Mm-hmm.
the thought process is changing how you do business. You mentioned Smarter. There was a company called Ticket Smarter. When I do games on ESPN, one of the sponsors of that particular broadcast was Ticket Smarter. Talk
Mm-hmm.
about in those job opportunities that may be on the horizon.
Yeah, I think I try to make sure that I try to keep things as simple as possible, right? And so the opportunities that are there, I'll just talk about that, right? And it's the front line, right? So the folks actually making the sales, that's how you got to get them in, right? You got to engage them somehow, and oftentimes, the start of the engagement might be a database team or CRM team or an email team, right? A database marketing team that identifies somebody as a lead, right? A fan that's in market that clicked on an email or a social post or something like that then gets into the ecosystem, that then gets nurtured to a point where it's time for us to reach out as a sales department to see if we can identify some opportunities for them, get to know them as individuals or organizations, their priorities, and then see if we can't find a fit. Because ultimately, that's what it's about. It's not us about selling a particular product. And in fact, oftentimes say it's not like if you're talking about the team, if you're talking about a particular product, right, you're probably losing, because you should be talking about them and the product of the product, right? Whether that's spending time with a significant other, loved ones, family, friends, clients, prospects, executive entertainment, employees for an organization to help reduce that employee turnover, right? And so figuring that out and talk about those things. And then once you get them in, then you got to have a talented group of people that are on your service and retention team, right? Because it's easier to keep somebody happy than to go find somebody new. And And so then you got to have a team, a rock star team that does that. We have that here in Denver. I think that's, prior to my arrival, and I think that's why we have such high demand here in this marketplace. So those are like, if you can do those things, because you're always selling, right? You always selling, no matter what you're doing. And so learning those skill sets from an elementary level, and then eventually escalating and growing that or evolving that into a more complex sales strategy, those are key fundamentals and key skill sets that are timeless. But then you've got some other ones, right? Like sales enablement, you've got database marketing, you've got data and analytics, right? There's in one organization I've worked with, we had a dedicated events and engagement team, right? So instead of me over here trying to plan some event or whatnot, let's get some subject matter experts in here that know about the details and the logistics of it. So, there's a lot of different things that you can do just within the hospitality space of how to engage fans, how to engage clients and or prospects, and then how to take all of the various numbers and convert them into presentable data that we can actually create action on, right? And so there's a lot of different roles and there's a lot of different opportunities. And it's something that I didn't know coming into it. I was like, I thought you had to run 4.5 or 4.3, or you had a wicked jump shot, right, or something like that, or you could throw 90 miles an hour. There's so many more opportunities in sports outside of what you see on game day, right? And that's not to take away from the folks that are actually playing, right? That's the most important thing, because without them, we don't have a product. But on the business side of things, there's so many more. And then there's other departments too that most people, community development, a huge aspect of what we do here with the Denver Broncos. And like that team is outstanding. Like it's stacked full of rock stars, right? It's like the 93 Bulls team, our community development team. And so, there's lots of roles and there's lots of ways to make impact being in the on the business side.
Well, there was a lot of opportunities. I often tell people, even when I'm broadcasting, they see ESPN, they think you make a lot of money. And I said, do you know the people behind the scenes make far more money than I do? I said, some of them make $200,000 and $300,000 a year, and people get blown away when I said that. I said, absolutely. You take for granted the behind the scene people, which will enable us to do our job, which is such an integral part. But thank God those organizations understand the importance of that as well. And thank you for sharing all the stuff that's behind the scenes. You just said about 10 opportunities that people can get into, which is great.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about differentiators with interviewing. Often I get asked, how can I differentiate myself from other candidates during the interview process? You got any tips for our viewers and listeners?
Absolutely, right. And the way that I referenced it earlier, but it's being authentic. Every single individual is different than the next, right? I'm different than you different than the next person. And I think that your experiences make you who you are, right? And so as you go through these things, as you go through life, and as you have these experiences, how you're able to articulate them, I think that's what differentiates you, right? Being able to convey your point, right, and being concise with that, I think those things are critical. So if you can pull from your experiences, and even if you're starting out, you're like, oh, I haven't worked in this industry. Well, that don't mean that you don't have experiences, right? The way that I talked about, I think back to my interview in Phoenix back in 2005, I talked about what made me successful as an athlete and how I was going to try to apply those things into this particular role. I had never worked in anything with any type of organization prior, nothing like the Phoenix Suns organization, not like a professional sports organization, but the things that I had done can translate, they can correlate to those things. And so focusing on those and pulling from your own past experiences and making analogies to and correlations to them, I think is important.
Now we get to the last question, which I love. It's called word association. I say a person, place, or thing, and you say the first thing that comes to your mind. And I like to have a lot of fun with this. And it also lets our viewers and listeners learn a little bit more about the guests as well. University of Illinois.
Squad. It's the squad. I mean, I'm on a text chain with about 30, 40 guys. They my brothers. I got a one older blood brother, but I got 100 others that we all got it how we lived, back in the day.
That's great. Chicago.
Crib. That's what I was. That's the crib. I don't get to it as often and they'll always be home for me. Even though I spent 7 years when my dad was at Oregon State, so middle school and high school in Oregon, but Chicago will always be home. Chicagoland will always be home. The food is the best in the world. The pizza is the best.
Now you don't live in New York, right? So you don't. Yeah,
and I have lived in New York, right? And I'm to this day, I'm dying on that hill, right? I'll take Giordano's. I will take that all day, every day.
Well, I went to school in Iowa, so I had a lot of basketball teammates from Chicago and got a chance to spend a lot of time there. And I love Chicago. Family.
Absolutely.
Family.
Absolutely. I would say so. Family is my my inner circle, my heart, right? And I am close with him. In fact, my nephew, my older brother, his son is just arrived today. I picked him up at the airport this morning. He's staying with me for a couple of days. He's incoming freshman at Oregon, playing football there. We're all excited about him. We're all super proud of him. But family is family and health, the most important things in life, in my opinion, right? You can't replace them, right? You can't replace them. So family is at the top of the chart for me.
And finally, the Denver Broncos football club.
Oh, we about to be the best in the business, right? And I'm not just talking on the field. This organization is historic. It's one of the premier franchises, clubs. I know different leagues call it their teams different. NFL, they call them clubs, but it's, in my opinion, it was a no-brainer when this opportunity opened up, right? The Denver Broncos was definitely an organization I wanted to work for. I wanted to be associated with. I wanted to bring some of my knowledge and expertise here. And I'm excited about it. It's going to be an exciting year on the field. Obviously, I can't control that. I am not tackling no 230, 40-pound tailbacks no more, right? But what I can do is contribute in my own way to this organization continuing to have success, right? Had a lot of success, got some great leadership, and I'm hoping that I can just help keep that thing going.
Well, Mr. Marc Jackson, thank you for taking the time. I know you guys are very excited with your up-and-coming football season, having Russell Wilson there. I know there's a lot of high expectations, which with winning football games will increase the ticket sales, which means you may need more people in there as well. But thank you for taking the time to join us. And thank the viewers and listeners for tuning in as well. Join me next Friday with another great guest here on The Right Fit. Until then, please stay healthy, stay safe. Have a great weekend.